Clara Bennett never imagined that a simple coffee run on Briar Lane would become the final moment of her life. But Marcus Hale was already in position, Elliot Graves was waiting for confirmation, and Daniel Bennett had set the plan in motion long before the sun rose over Maplewood. Maplewood was the kind of suburban town where nothing truly shocking ever seemed to happen. Tree-lined streets stretched beneath a bright spring sky, and trimmed lawns reflected the pride of families who had lived there for years. On that Tuesday morning, sunlight poured over Briar Lane, warming the sidewalks and storefront windows. Parents hurried after dropping their children at school, retirees sipped coffee outside the corner cafe, and delivery trucks rolled by at an unhurried pace. It felt like a perfectly ordinary day. At 10:17 a.m., Clara Bennett stepped out of the cafe with a paper cup in one hand and her phone in the other. She was known around town as confident and hardworking, someone who had built a strong reputation in real estate. Security cameras mounted above the cafe entrance captured her pausing near her car, glancing at her screen, and smiling faintly as if she had just read a pleasant message. Then the moment shattered. From the edge of the frame, a hooded figure moved quickly toward her. The attack unfolded in seconds. Nearby pedestrians froze in disbelief as the sudden violence broke the calm of the morning. Clara fell to the pavement, her coffee spilling across the concrete. The attacker turned and ran, disappearing down the street just as quickly as they had appeared. Sirens soon echoed through Maplewood, but by then the bright, peaceful morning had already transformed into a scene no one would ever forget. Investigators quickly secured the area around Briar Lane, pushing back stunned onlookers as they began collecting evidence. The cafe's security system became the center of attention. Officers retrieved the original footage, determined to preserve every frame. What it revealed was clear yet frustrating. The attacker wore a dark hoodie pulled low over their face, a cap beneath it, and gloves that concealed any fingerprints. Their posture suggested planning, not panic. Every movement appeared direct and intentional. Detectives expanded their search, gathering recordings from nearby shops, traffic cameras, and private homes. The suspect appeared again at the corner of Maple and Briar, walking calmly minutes before the attack. In another clip, a gray sedan idled near a narrow alleyway, positioned just out of direct sight from the main street. Seconds after the assault, the same figure sprinted into that alley and entered the vehicle. The car pulled away smoothly, merging into traffic without drawing attention. Forensic teams enhanced the footage, focusing on the vehicle's license plate. Only part of the number was visible. After hours of digital sharpening, analysts identified enough characters to run a search. The result brought a new twist. The plate belonged to a car reported stolen the previous evening. What had seemed like a spontaneous act now looked carefully arranged. Someone had prepared for this. Someone had planned every second. As the investigation deepened, detectives shifted their attention from the street to Clara Bennett's private world. On the surface, her life appeared stable. She had built a thriving real estate career, recently finalized a divorce, and moved into a modern townhouse across town. Friends described her as ambitious and independent, someone focused on rebuilding her future. But beneath that calm exterior, investigators began uncovering strain. Financial records revealed ongoing disputes tied to her divorce settlement. Her ex-husband, Daniel Bennett, had struggled after their separation. Court documents showed disagreements over shared investments and property assets. Detectives learned that Clara had refused to renegotiate certain financial terms despite Daniel's reported debt. The tension had not been public, but it had been serious. At the same time, Clara had been negotiating a major commercial property sale with a development company planning a large project in Maplewood. Emails recovered from her laptop showed conflict over confidential zoning information. Clara had reportedly withdrawn from the deal days before her death, citing ethical concerns. Investigators began mapping timelines and communications. Clara's phone records showed a message received minutes before the attack, though its contents had been deleted. The timing was troubling. It suggested she may have been expecting to meet someone willingly that morning. The murder no longer seemed random. It began to look like the result of pressure building quietly behind closed doors, where financial stakes and personal grievances had collided. Nearly 3 weeks after the murder, the case took an unexpected turn during a routine patrol on the edge of Maplewood. An officer noticed a gray sedan parked awkwardly near an abandoned warehouse. The vehicle matched the general description of the getaway car seen in the surveillance footage, though it now carried a different set of license plates. The officer ran the registration and discovered the plates belonged to another vehicle entirely. The car was impounded immediately. Forensic technicians examined every surface, searching for traces that might connect it to Briar Lane. Under closer inspection, the vehicle identification number confirmed it was the same car reported stolen the night before Clara Bennett's murder. The plates had been swapped in an attempt to avoid detection. The registered driver of the swapped plates was a 22-year-old college student named Marcus Hale. When questioned, Marcus claimed he had recently purchased the car at a low price through an online marketplace. He insisted he had no knowledge of its stolen status and denied being anywhere near Briar Lane on the day of the attack. Inside the trunk, investigators found dark fabric fibers consistent with the hoodie worn by the suspect in the footage. Surveillance from a nearby gas station placed Marcus fueling the same sedan shortly after the time of the murder. The evidence tightened around him, but investigators still needed proof that he was the hooded figure seen on camera. With Marcus Hale now at the center of the investigation, detectives turned their focus to his digital life. His phone, laptop, and online accounts were seized under warrant and sent to forensic analysts. Specialists worked to recover deleted data, believing that if Marcus had planned the attack, traces would remain buried in his devices. What they uncovered raised serious concerns. Days before Clara Bennett's murder, Marcus had searched for information about security camera blind spots and traffic flow patterns in Maplewood during mid-morning hours. He had also mapped multiple exit routes from Briar Lane to the highway, comparing estimated travel times. These searches were not random. They formed a clear pattern of preparation. More troubling was a deleted message recovered from his phone. It contained only a street name, Briar Lane, and a time that closely matched the moment of the attack. There was no sender information attached, but metadata confirmed the message had been received shortly before it was erased. Financial records added another layer. Marcus's bank account showed a recent deposit far larger than his usual part-time earnings. When questioned again, he claimed it was payment for freelance work, but he could not provide documentation to support the explanation. Despite the growing evidence, investigators remained puzzled by one critical gap. Marcus had no known connection to Clara. There was no personal motive, no shared history, no visible reason for him to target her specifically. Someone else had to be involved. As financial investigators dug deeper into Marcus Hale's sudden bank deposit, they traced the transfer through layers of accounts designed to hide its origin. The money had passed through an offshore account before landing in a domestic shell company with no physical office and minimal public records. Subpoenas forced the release of internal documents, revealing that the shell company was tied to a larger development firm involved in several high-value projects across the region. That same firm had recently been negotiating a major property acquisition with Clara Bennett. Emails already recovered had shown rising tension after Clara withdrew from the deal. Now the financial trail suggested something far more serious than a failed business arrangement. Attention turned to Elliot Graves, a senior representative of the development company who had handled communications with Clara. Phone records showed multiple contacts between Elliot and Marcus in the weeks leading up to the murder. Surveillance footage from a parking garage outside Maplewood captured the two meeting late one evening. The encounter lasted less than 10 minutes, but it was enough to suggest coordination. Investigators constructed a working theory. Marcus had been recruited and paid to carry out the attack. The stolen vehicle, the planned route, and the deleted message all fit into a structured plan rather than an impulsive act. What had once appeared to be a lone suspect now pointed toward a calculated arrangement driven by financial interests hidden behind corporate layers. As prosecutors prepared charges against Marcus Hale and Elliot Graves, another review of financial records uncovered a development no one had anticipated. Daniel Bennett, Clara's ex-husband, had recently cleared a significant portion of his outstanding debt. The payments were made in large installments within weeks of Clara's death. For someone who had been struggling financially, the sudden recovery seemed impossible without outside assistance. Investigators traced the source of those funds. The transfers led back to the same shell company already connected to Elliot Graves. What initially appeared to be separate threads began weaving into a single pattern. Phone records showed several calls between Daniel and Elliot in the month before the murder. Though the conversation's contents were unknown, their frequency increased as Clara's property dispute with the development firm intensified. Detectives revisited Daniel's alibi. While office surveillance placed him at work for most of the morning, the unexplained 40-minute absence now carried greater weight. Location data suggested he had traveled toward Briar Lane during that window, though he never appeared directly in the cafe footage. Prosecutors developed a new theory. Daniel had inside knowledge of Clara's schedule and habits. Elliot had financial motive tied to the failed property deal. Marcus had carried out the physical act. What once looked like isolated motives now resembled a coordinated conspiracy shaped by resentment and greed. The trial drew intense attention from Maplewood residents and national media alike. The courtroom remained full each day as prosecutors carefully presented months of investigative work. Surveillance footage from Briar Lane was shown repeatedly, each frame slowed and analyzed. Jurors watched the hooded figure approach Clara Bennett, the swift attack, and the calculated escape into the waiting sedan. What had once been a shocking viral clip was now central evidence in a carefully structured case. Financial records mapped the flow of money from the development firm's shell company to Marcus Hale and then to Daniel Bennett. Phone logs demonstrated repeated contact between Daniel and Elliot Graves during the weeks leading up to the murder. Digital forensics tied Marcus's searches and deleted messages to the precise timing of the crime. Piece by piece, prosecutors outlined a coordinated plan fueled by financial desperation and corporate interest. The defense attempted to challenge the interpretation of the evidence, but the timeline remained consistent. The stolen vehicle, the secret meeting in the parking garage, and the unexplained debt payments formed a chain that was difficult to break. After days of deliberation, the jury returned guilty verdicts for all three men. Marcus was convicted of first-degree murder, while Elliot and Daniel were found guilty of conspiracy and related charges. Clara's death left Maplewood changed forever, a reminder that even in broad daylight, darkness can hide behind ordinary lives.